Hey everybody, Jonathan Brandt, Go Out Living. We have a special guest today. We have a Mr. Len May. We are excited to have him here. He is CEO and co-founder of EndoDNA. And what's exciting about Len is it's almost where you came from as well. It's an exciting story of resilience, of it's go out living. It's not giving up. And I was hoping, one, welcome. So excited to have you here. And two, yeah, let's start with your story.
Yeah, I appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much for having me on. And resilience is exactly the key. It's interesting because I was talking to friends of mine and how we raise our kids these days. And we sort of have this, let's make sure that we don't put them through undue stress. But in my generation, I'm a latchkey kid. I get kicked out of my house, all these other things. I think it builds this muscle that I think the next generation doesn't know how to build because we didn't create a system for them. We actually, put borders around them so they don't feel that kind of resistance. I think it's really important to build resilience. So, my story, I'll try to go over it as quick as I can. But I was born in Lithuania and I immigrated to the US when I was about 6 years old. My parents, my grandparents, and I was the kind of kid like I had to learn English and everything. But I moved to Philadelphia, and I live in Los Angeles now, but that's where I grew up. So I was the kind of kid that would sit in class, a teacher would call on me, and I would be elsewhere. My brain would be elsewhere. I wasn't paying attention. And I was always like, "You're disruptive, you're an underachiever." My parents like, "Let's see what's wrong with this kid." So they started taking me to doctors, and I got diagnosed with ADD, attention deficit disorder. And I want to emphasize that disorder. Now there's something wrong with me. Oh no, I have this big disorder. So, they put me on medication, and I can't say that didn't work. It depends how you define work. It did allow me to focus more, but it removed my sense of any feeling or emotion. There's no highs, there's no lows. I didn't feel anything. I was just going through the motions. And one day I was going to school. I'm not advocating for this in any way, so I want to preface it as a disclaimer. It's my story. So I was going to school, and these older kids, it was like ninth grade. They're like, "Hey, do you want to smoke a cigarette?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be cool hanging out with the 10th graders as a ninth grader. I'll smoke a cigarette." They had one cigarette, which I didn't question why one, now looking back. So so they passed the cigarette out. I took a drag. Like, it didn't taste like a cigarette because I was dabbling at that time. Anyway, took another drag. They're laughing at me. So they ended up putting cannabis in the cigarette. And when I went back to class, the funny thing is all the windows in my head sort of they closed, and I was able to focus. So it sort of became my go-to medicine, I would say. And my parents kept catching me over time, and ended up when I was just about 18, I just finished high school, I think. And I was out one night, and I came downstairs, and my dad's like, "Don't bring this stuff in the house." So I had like a little pouch, and I kept it in my car. I come home, they're sitting with a pouch. I was like, "You guys went through my car, like, into my property." So they ended up calling the cops and trying to have me arrested. And then my dad literally, which nothing happened, but my dad literally kicked me out the door. And that was it. And I didn't talk to him for years, but I speak to him every day now. We're able to patch things up. And the irony is my company has patents on, phytocannabinoid formulations. My parents both take those, so they're very proud of that. So
Oh, that's
that's sort
crazy.
of
That's
my
cool.
journey starting my life. And, trying to find my way through this journey was interesting because you're homeless. You're I wasn't living on the street, but like I couch surfed. So I crashed with my girlfriend at the time. Then her parents like, he's got to go. Then his friend, my friends, then he's got to go. And there was a lot of that. Then my grandmother allowed me to stay. And then she helped me to put a deposit on an apartment. She got me like $500. And I also got a job at, for those of young people, there used to be a record store called Tower Records, which is the greatest
Yeah.
record store in the world. So I was a cashier there, and I started going to college, and was able to get my life together, so to speak. a whole other rest of my journey, but I'll pause to give you a chance to ask questions.
Oh, no, that's awesome. I think a lot of us have gone similar roads, some a little bit more extreme than others. But um, so, what really interests me also was your road to DNA in healthcare. Maybe how did you even get to that point of, thinking that's the next gen, whether you want to talk pharmaceuticals or just healing in general? How did DNA start with you?
I think it has to do with a little bit of my own personal journey and then my journey in healthcare work wise. So this is what happened when I was a kid. My grandfather, we all came together. My grandfather had a stroke and it proceeded to have multiple strokes and lots of health challenges. And I remember he was a very large, physically large man, very tall, big guy. And my grandmother was really small. It was really weird because then he couldn't walk right, he couldn't talk. But I remember my grandmother, my mom would sit on the table, sit with 2 bags of prescription medication. And would constantly talk to doctors about this isn't working with this isn't working with that. It's creating all these adverse effects for him. And he was having health problems. Yeah. So I exited my company, and my girlfriend at the time, who is now my ex-wife, said you have to get a real job. So I went to work for Price Waterhouse at the time. It was a big six consulting firm, and then it was PwC, left that, went to work for a venture capital company, then decided to be a commercial real estate broker. And this is back in about 2005, and I worked there through the crash and moved to Los Angeles. And I was sitting in a real estate office, and it was not a reciprocal estate. And I wasn't sure that's what I wanted to do. This 2010. And these guys walked in and they started talking about opening an alternative pharmacy. And I was like, I don't know what these guys really want. Like, talk to Len. I'm like, all right, so what do you guys really want? Like, alternative pharmacy. I'm like, what do you guys really want? Like, we want to open up a dispensary, cannabis dispensary. I'm like, all right, cool. You need to be compliant. So I had some, information. You had to be Prop 215, as before 20. They had no idea what I was talking about. So I'm like, I'll help you guys. I'll help you guys with your paperwork and I'll help you find a place. So we did that. And they said, would you like to come in as a partner? So I'm like, yeah. So we ended up opening 4 more under the same brand. But this is where the DNA comes in. I started seeing that 2 people will consume the same varietal and have a complete different experience. So my ADD kicked into hyper focus mode and I started researching. I found this guy who genetically sequenced the plant. So I reached out to him to get some information. He's like, we met. He's like, I have 30 minutes, but we ended up meeting for 3 hours. He's like, come on board as a consultant. So they taught me how to extract DNA from plants. So I would travel the country, get plant material from different cultivators, sequence it, and we started the library of uh, different varietals of cannabis. And their parent company was doing pharmacogenomics testing, which is a study of how drugs affect individual bodies and that whole contraindication. So a light bulb moment one day, I said, well, we have plant material here, we have human genetics here. Let's bring those two together to help guide people to a more personalized experience. They really didn't have an interest in that. So they ended up closing down the human side. So I was lucky. I grabbed some scientists with me and launched EndoDNA in 2017. So our mission was to, when we met with the FDA, they said, what is the purpose of your test? And I said, to help people either mitigate or avoid an adverse event. They said, great, you can't make any claims and you can't talk about a disease. So we can't talk about Parkinson's, but we can talk about tremors associated with Parkinson's as an example. So that's how we launched our company. We got a patent on the use of DNA to make recommendations associated with the endocannabinoid system. And once we did that, we operated with, 8, 9, 10,000 customers around the world. And I started getting calls from doctors. And one of the doctors called me up, said, I have a lot of patients coming in my clinic, late 20s, early 30s with perimenopause symptoms. And also, I have a lot of women that are coming in with really adverse effects from menopause, like hot flash severity, hot flash frequency, weight gain, sleep issues. Is there a way that we can get ahead of those conditions before they turn themselves on? So I say yes. I always say yes, and I figured out later. So I said yes. I went back to my bioinformatics team and I said, "Can we do this?" So we build a female hormone health test. Then we build a male hormone health test, and we sort of pivoted our business to focus on healthcare practitioners, so we can give them the tools not only to use DNA, but also to look at other biomarkers to see how efficacious their treatment protocol is for individuals. So you would look at your DNA, you would have a protocol, but the most exciting thing to me is the feedback loop. So we can actually track how well the protocol is working, and then the AI would learn from that and make different suggestions to the practitioners. So that's kind of the story behind that.
That is amazing. So, how many different diseases are you guys dealing with right now? Is there a number, or are we still in, beginning stages?
So we're able to do the whole genome, but the challenge is that when we were working with directly with consumers, we can't talk about diseases. But what we can do is we can make suggestions to practitioners looking at different conditions. So right now, currently, our company EndoDNA looks at regenerative health and wellness. So we work with functional medical professionals. So it's male and female hormone health. We also have a clinical trial that we're doing on Alzheimer's and now autism. So we're looking at cognitive health and wellness. We're also looking at skin, and we're looking at nutrigenomics and our endocannabinoid system test. So those are the tests that we do now. However, in the next year, we have a plan for 4 new tests, and it depends on what the practitioners really want. So the idea is to look at your genetic predispositions, then provide a protocol suggestion to the practitioner. Then the practitioner would then it'll be sort of your RX or your pharmaceutical intervention, maybe hormone optimization, but specific to you with the right dose and when to redose. Also, what kind of supplementation do you need that's personalized to you? What lifestyle modifiers do you need? And then with the feedback, the platform learns. So we have a patent on machine learning based efficacy predictions based on genetic and biometric information. So we can even get information from your wearable device to see how well that protocol is working. And then the system learns. So the idea is you're always learning and you're always improving. At some point, we're going to be like, all right, this person is similar genetically to the 50 people that came before them. So let's try this protocol, and then it'll tweak specifically for the individual and make it individualized. Right now, it's personalized.
That's amazing. I mean, it really is. I mean, the future of it, I mean, there's no end to it.
I would say that it's the idea of genetics and epigenetics. I think that's the thing that is confusing to people, especially practitioners. When we work at MDs and doctors say, ah, does it really matter where your genetic predisposition is? We only care about the epigenetic expression. And I kind of talk about it this way. So I'm in Philadelphia right now, but I live in Los Angeles. So if I get in my car and I drive from Philadelphia to Los Angeles without a GPS, I'll eventually make it. I'll hit some potholes along the way, some traffic jams, some accidents, wrong turns. I'll get lost, but I'll get there eventually. We
Right.
we have maps back in the day, like you have to unfold
Oh,
that.
yeah.
So but with the GPS, I can actually see what's happening in front of me so I can avoid stepping into that pothole or driving into that pothole. So knowing your genetic predisposition, your genome, is your GPS of life. It shows you where your potholes are in the road. Now, doctors are correct that that's part of it. It all matters what is turned on. But the thing that I think people don't understand, and even doctors, that's why our platform allows a doctor to interrogate the genome. You can chat with it. You can ask it questions like you would with chat GPT or anything else, and it comes back in eighth grade language. So you can say, hey, how well does Jonathan metabolize? Or how well what kind of aromatizer is Len? and I'll tell you predisposition. But I think people don't understand genetics in general. So can I take like 30 seconds to give
Oh, you can keep
my
going, yeah,
overview?
because this is yeah, love it.
So so we get our DNA from our parents, obviously 50% from our mother, 50% from our father. So I like to use a visual, like think about having a big circuit breaker box with a bunch of on-off switches for your breakers in your home. So when we're born, maybe 20 to 30% of those breakers are turned on. The other ones are turned off. So the things that are turned on are things like your eye color, your skin color, your hair color, some of those predispositions. The other genetic predispositions are dormant. So we have the coding for them, but there needs to be messages from that cell to another cell to create the protein to turn that circuit breaker on. Now, people say, it's in my genes. I have no control over that. Well, you have control over 70% of those things. And how do you have control of them? What are the factors? So the first factor is lifestyle. And what I mean by that is food that we put in our
Mhm.
bodies, how we eat, what supplements we take, what nutrients we consume, what minerals we consume. They're responsible for epigenetic expression, turning on the switch. The other things are exposure to heavy metals, pesticides, all these other mold, all these different things, they control our epigenetic expression. The third thing is our own neurochemistry. And this is the thing that it's wild for people to grasp. The way that we secrete our own neurochemicals can actually trigger the expression. Things like cortisol. Cortisol is wonderful when you're waking up in the morning, gets us up. It starts balancing our circadian rhythm. But if we're constantly in a fight or flight when we're not supposed to be, we're secreting a chemical that doesn't belong there. And that creates epigenetic expression as well. So, all these different things you have to look at in silos, but when you put them all together, they're the pieces of the puzzle that we need in order to live our lives to the best of our abilities.
Yeah, live healthy, basically, when it comes down to it,
Exactly.
because you're gonna be able to tell what foods you need or what you don't need, what is toxic to you per se. Yeah, I mean, again, it could be literally endless per person even, you know?
Yes.
So, okay, if we look at somebody like me, for instance, does coming off all the chemo, bone marrow transplant, knowing there's a lot of side effects because of basically poison, what will that help me with? Will that still help me determine what will be better for me to eat? You know, what to stay away from, those sort of things?
It's not only what to eat, what to stay away from, because
Right.
our bodies are complicated. There's a connection between your brain and your gut, and it's connected to the vagus nerve. So I think we're incomplete. And what I mean by that is looking at your genetic and epigenetic without looking at your microbiome is not a full picture. So if I were looking the full picture, I would look at all those things because you need to see what is going on. How is your body metabolizing certain things? What is inflammatory to you personally? So I'll give you an example. When I did my gut microbiome test, it showed me that bell peppers are an inflammatory food for me personally, meaning that whatever enzymes I have in my gut are not breaking down bell peppers effectively. So they're creating inflammation. It's a domino effect. Inflammation is one of the worst things that we can have in our bodies, but bell peppers are healthy, right? Everybody say, oh, it's a source of a lot of vitamins, but not for me. You can change your gut bacteria, by the way. You can actually take different probiotics, different things in order to mitigate and modify your gut bacteria so you can metabolize certain things. So you need to look at the full picture. What the test can tell you is, well, looking at your hormone levels, maybe like hormone health test, it can look to see, well, maybe you need some modification of your or optimization of your hormones. Uh, what kind of stress are you predisposed to? So let's say I'll give you another example. There's a gene called fatty acid amide hydrolase. That gene is responsible for breaking down something called anandamide. Anandamide is an endogenous endocannabinoid. We produce this sort of when we get the runner's high or we're working out, it's that euphoria, it makes it feel good. Now, some people actually have an enzyme in this FA gene that breaks down anandamide more rapidly than the average person. So if you're not producing enough of this happy molecule, happy neurochemical, then what happens in a stressful event, your cortisol can stay longer in your bloodstream. And when it stays longer in your bloodstream, your immune system can overreact to that. So it's an overactive immune response. So you're saying, some people start feeling inflammation and pain, usually starts in your joints, ankles, knees, hips, neck, back, etc. So you go to a doctor and they're saying, oh, your knees hurt, your elbow hurts. Well, let us take care of the pain. So we'll give you a pill for that. But they're not saying what is the root cause of? Well, the root cause of that is that my immune system is overreacting to the cortisol levels that I have in my bloodstream. So instead of addressing my stress level and bringing down the cortisol, I'm getting a pill for that. Well, it has side effects. Oh, we got a pill for that as well. So it's sort of getting you on the teat of big pharma. I'm not against pharma. I think when it's appropriate and it's correct for the individual, wonderful. But I'm also saying that we are too, I'll go back to myself with this whole ADD thing. We're too busy diagnosing people with something as a disorder. Now, for me, attention deficit disorder is an attention deficit advantage. It is my advantage because I'm able to use it as a neurodivergent to take advantage because my brain thinks differently than maybe somebody else's brain. I process information differently. When I learn that about myself, I can see that I can recognize patterns that other people can. So I'm multitask, but it's not like I'm doing three things at the same time. I'm connecting three things that may seem like completely unconnected, unrelated things to a relationship that makes it seem like I'm doing one thing. So now that you learn that about yourself, you can actually take advantage of that as sort of a superpower. Same thing with understanding your genetic predispositions to diseases, to conditions, and how to optimize yourself, most importantly, to prevent things from happening. One more example that I can give you, also personally, but a lot of people have the same kind of thing. So I want I'm very fearful of getting my blood drawn. I don't know what it is. I'm all tattooed, so I'm not afraid of needles, but it's something to do with the blood leaving my body. So I go
Right.
get my physical and I'm getting my blood drawn and I told them, yeah, I don't do well with this. They're like, you'll be okay, you'll be okay. Then I hear, hey, Nancy, come in here. I need your help. So I guess I started sliding off the chair and they had to pull the needle out. They had to give me juice and all that stuff. All right, So I got through it and I went back to the doctor and I have functional medical doctor. So looks at all my labs and says, you know what? Everything is good except your blood glucose level is high. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. I don't eat sugar. I don't eat meat. I don't eat simple carbs. I don't eat processed foods and all. I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. She goes, well, if you're concerned about it, I can prescribe a glucose monitor. We'll check. But what I really think is happening is when you were stressed during your blood work, you had an excretion of cortisol, which then elevated your blood glucose level. So it's probably what it is, but let's monitor for the next couple of weeks. It's exactly what it was. But the flip side of that, I go to a regular MD, not everybody, but a lot of doctors, and they look to see, oh, A1C glucose level high. Let's give you a pill for that. You're pre diabetic. Let's make sure nothing happens to you. So, this is the thing we need to open up our minds a little bit more and to see that we can actually, there's, there's nuances in this. And you have to look between, like, sort of from a musical inspiration standpoint, it's the rest between the notes that may be the most important part of this. So just kind of look at the whole picture.
I love that. Something that really sticks out to me is the preventative side and not jumping straight into, like you said, if you find out what is in your genome, you can be preventative, but you can also make sure you're not taking stuff you don't need and you're not harming yourself even more, because I think that's where I'm coming from everything I've been through. The harm's already there. Maybe if I would have known some things ahead of time, I wouldn't have jumped down that road, and I could have possibly saved myself from surgery, for instance, over the summer where I lost, 6 inches of my colon, which can go back to everything I've been through. So this could give you a little bit of more of a roadmap to possibly prevent you from going down those really bad paths.
I'm a big believer in holding yourself accountable. And this is what I
Mhm.
mean by that. I mean, your doctor has hundreds of patients. You are your most important patient. There's nothing more important than your health. And we're so focused on, creating wealth for ourselves, comfortable. We ignore the most important thing. You can have a goal list, you have a to-do list. When you're sick, you have one thing just to get better. So you have to be a partner with your doctor. Your doctor doesn't know everything. Their job in their Hippocratic oath is do no harm. They never take an oath to cure you of anything. And by the way, your body does a pretty good job in curing you if you give it the right fuel to do so. And by you understanding what you need and making sure you personalize and optimize yourself for the best version of yourself that you can possibly be, your doctor becomes your partner in your health journey. And you're absolutely right. It's about prevention, knowing the things that you are predisposed to and being able to navigate around them or making those changes. That's the key. Uh, you know, if you're predisposed to gut health issues and you're a lot stressed a lot and you're eating processed foods, well, you're going to turn that expression on. This is your own choice. You know this. You can't say that you're unaware, but you made that choice. And now, you have to go and address something after the fact. But if you know this about yourself, you can work around and not step into, that pothole.
Well, and that's one of the biggest reasons I'm doing this is I don't want people to go down the road me and my wife went down. We want you to be ahead of the game. Yeah, I take accountability for all the drinking and the smoking I did. You know, that was on me. I don't want people to go down that road though. So by having these conversations, by getting your company out there, hopefully we can change minds earlier and get them on the right path to find out what their predispositions are so they have a healthier lifestyle throughout.
Right.
S- So I really appreciate you coming on. I mean, if there was anything you could say to people like that, that we're trying to get across, a healthier way of doing things, what would that be right now? What is the one key, if we want to say prevention, what is that one key to get people to start listening?
I don't think it's one key. I think it's several different things, and we're all different. And you're not locked into what you're born with. You can make changes, but as you said, accountability is important. When you're young, you don't think about these things. I have these conversations with my daughter. She's 21, and my girlfriend's kids are also older. And you're going out and you're drinking. You're partying, great, and that's fine. This is the age that you want to do that. But at some point, you want to create a balance. And maybe the pendulum will swing as you're getting older, your metabolism slows down. The things that you put in your body now, you're going to feel 20 years from now, So
Yep.
you have to be able to understand that this is one vessel that's given to you. It's a gift and try to optimize it to the best of your ability. It's like, you know, your car. You want your car to run, you have to change the oil, you have to do maintenance, and you have to prevent certain things. Like I live in LA. If I'm going skiing, they have a rule that you have to put snow tires on or you can't. If you don't have them, you can't go there. So
Right.
this is a preventative thing for you not to get stuck in the snow, for them to go have to get you out. So you have to do the same thing in your life. Hey, put on your chains on your tires in your life. I can tell you It's the same thing that everybody always says. Get the right quality sleep. Monitor your sleep. Don't Not everybody needs 8 hours sleep. Some people less, some people more. It's the quality, not the quantity. Make sure you don't eat processed foods. We are, I mean, a lot of food that we eat is processed. A lot of things that we put in our bodies are converting to other things, simple carbs, etc. We know these things already. Supplements. Make sure that you're getting the right amount of nutrients from food, hopefully, but if not, supplement. We all know these things. Don't smoke, drinking alcohol, poisons. But you can do certain things in moderation if you're doing other things. But the challenge is that it's very difficult to maintain discipline because we all have environmental ADD. Shiny objects. Oh, is it fun? You know what? I'm going to start tomorrow. Yeah, I'll tell you, quick one. And your audience knows this too. So we set New Year's resolutions. I don't personally do that. I have goals, but people set New Year's resolutions. One of the biggest New Year's resolutions that people set is I'm going to start going to the gym and working out. I'm going to get better in my health and fitness. Okay. So you go to the gym in January. The parking lot is packed. You can't get a spot. February, packed. March, a little bit less. By the time April, May rolls around, you're back to where you were in June and December. So this discipline is very difficult. You can have all the tools in the world. You can have our companies, EndoDNA's, genetic testing. You can do everything. It's about the implementation and consistency. So it's creating priority over other things. It's not, we're creatures of comfort. It's very, very comfortable for us to say, I'm going to get ready to get ready. Oh, I'm going to get up. You know what?
Yeah.
Tomorrow I'm going to do that. You have to be able to push yourself a little bit more for that consistency. And after you do it for 30 days, it becomes a habit. You can do anything you want to do when it becomes a habit. Everything is difficult at first, you know, and it's uncomfortable. When we go to the gym and work out, our muscles hurt. They're uncomfortable, but that's the way you build muscle. Through that, overcoming that, and going back to the original thing we talked about is that resilience, right? The resilience, that muscle that you build up when you're younger, you have to be able to challenge that because that's the way you create, growth. And if you don't have the ability to challenge yourself, then you're not growing. And if you're not growing, what happens? You're dying, So
Yeah.
that's the thing. There's no bigger priority than having you live a healthy, fruitful, fulfilling life.
Well, and I think you hit on it. One, it's behaviors, recognizing what is a good behavior and a bad behavior. And the other is, you know, your gym comparison is perfect. People want results now. They're not willing to go, well, if I do it, start off slow and get to where I want to be eventually, guess what? I've now a year down the line, 5 years down the line, 10, I'm now living a healthy lifestyle that will continue on because I wasn't in a hurry to get there.
Yeah, I think look, I'm very guilty of some of that myself. Instantaneous gratification. I want to get to this, but I just want to urge people based on my personal experience of achievement. So one of the things that happens is like every single time I would switch and do something else or I exit out a company, that's my goal. Once I get there, it's a celebration for a minute. And then it's like, all right, well, now what? It's sort of that dopamine hit that you get from achieving something that now goes away. I talk to a lot of athletes about this too. They won, I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan. They won the Super Bowl. When you talk to some of these athletes, they say, we got there, but now what? We have to do it again. It's the journey, not the destination. And if you can connect yourself to the process of the journey and try to enjoy it every step of the way, getting to the finish line is not going to be as satisfactory as you think it will be because you're going to move the finish line further. So one of the goals is go through the journey as you're getting closer to your finish line, whatever that looks like, move it a little bit further and enjoy the ride with your journey. And if you're I mean, everybody can relate to this. They don't have to necessarily have, cancer or other diseases. A, a flu, like, you think you're going throughout your life and you have work and you have goals, that shit hits you on your ass and you're down and it feels awful. You know you're gonna get past it, but it feels bad in that, so you never know what you're gonna step into that are unavoidable. But if you can avoid certain things that you're aware of, why not? Because
Mhm.
life comes at you from different angles that you may not see.
I love that. Yeah, you're exactly right. Um, how do people look into you? How do they look into EndoDNA?
Well, EndoDNA.com. That's we're launching a new platform now that's using our machine learning as well. So it's going to be EndoDNA plus BIOS. So you can go to EndoDNA.com. I'm available on all the social media platforms. Uh, I'm Len May DNA on Instagram, but Len May Lenmay everywhere else. Pretty active on that. I also do some interesting stuff here and there. I wrote a couple books. I have my one book that's called Making Cannabis Personal. You can get that on Amazon. I have another book on ADD and polymathy. So it's the connection between being a polymath. I only wrote that because I was doing a talk somewhere, and the guy that was introducing me said, "I want to introduce Len May. He's an autodidactic polymath." And I was like, What'd you call me?" Like, Philly came out, I'm like, "What'd you call me? We're going." And, like, I had to look it
Uh,
up. I'm like, "Oh, that means that I can learn other things outside of school, that I'm interested in, become an expert in different things." I'm like, "Oh, okay. That's a nice thing." So I'm like, "I wonder how the connection to ADD is," and I started researching it. There was nothing written about it. So I decided to write a book,
that is
on that.
awesome.
And then, I'm a big music guy, so I have a pretty big music, vinyl collection. So every day I get a record out of my collection, and I put that on, I share that with people, called Record of the Day. That's also my social. Nothing to do with my job, but, yeah, it's fun.
Hey, you need that, don't you? We all need it. So,
Exactly.
no, that is awesome. Um, God, I have so many questions, but I know we're pretty much out of time. It was an absolute honor. This was a lot of fun for me. I learned a lot. Um, gonna learn a lot more. I hope I can have you on again. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Len May, everyone, CEO, co-founder of EndoDNA, and I'm going to post a lot of stuff on the blog as usual about their company and where you can get a hold of them and learn a lot more, which I'll want to do. So, thanks again to Len May, and thank you to all of you for listening. Another great episode, and as we always find the attitude, keep the attitude. Go out living.